Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother and sister, welcome back to Islamic Notes channel. A nun who was so arrogant stood in front of her congregation, then arrogantly burned the Quran. However, who would have thought there was a 10-year-old child who suddenly stood up and challenged her to a debate? What happened next was truly unexpected. Let's listen to the story. In an old church that stands majestically in the middle of Madrid, Spain, a nun named Sister Maria stood upright on the pulpit. Her eyes stared sharply at the congregation sitting neatly in front of her. The room was filled with people wearing formal clothes. Most of them were devout Christians. On the walls of the church there was a large painting of Jesus with a crown of thorns. The flickering candlelight on the altar gave a solemn atmosphere. However, there was something different that day. Not just an ordinary sermon about love and peace, but something much more provocative and full of anger. Sister Maria held the Quran with hatred and began to talk about the book. This book, she said, is a book that claims to be the revelation of God, but they consider it to be more truth than a collection of human words. With trembling hands, whether from anger or satisfaction, she struck a match. The small flame began to glow and dance on the tip of the matchstick. Sister Maria's face seemed filled with desire to prove her point. She bent down, placed the match on the corner of the Quran she was holding, and in an instant, the flames began to spread to the cover of the book. The sound of burning paper was heard in the church, which suddenly became silent. The congregation fell silent. No one dared to make a sound. All eyes were fixed on the Quran that was starting to burn. Suddenly, a 10-year-old child, who was sitting among the congregation, stood up and challenged Sister Maria. "Do you dare to argue with me?" he said with a sarcasm. The congregation laughed too, although some of them began to feel that there was something wrong with this situation. Hugo, that was the boy's name, stepped forward and in a firm voice said, "Do you dare to argue with me, Sister Maria?" Sister Maria's face looked shocked. In front of her own congregation, she felt hesitant. However, she tried to remain brave. "Okay, Hugo," Sister Maria replied. "If you want to talk, let's start. But remember, don't cry if you lose," she said in a mocking tone. Hugo smiled. He was not afraid. He knew that the truth could not be defeated by arrogance. Calmly, he continued, "Sister Maria, was Jesus also a human being?" Sister Maria was silent for a moment. She did not realize that Hugo's first question had led to something that shook her faith. After a while, Sister Maria answered in a dismissive tone, "Yes, Jesus was a human being, but he was also God in our teachings." However, some people in the congregation began to look doubtful. Hugo did not stop there. Patiently, he continued his explanation. "We cannot see the wind, but we can feel it. We can see its effects when the leaves sway, when the air touches our skin. It is the same with God. We cannot see him directly, but we can feel his presence through his creation, through the wonders that exist in this world," Hugo said. The congregation grew silent. They began to realize that the little boy's answers were not only logical, but also full of wisdom. Sister Maria tried to restrain herself, but she began to lose control. She glanced at the congregation, who were beginning to doubt her teaching. In a loud voice, she tried to turn the situation around. "Okay, Hugo, imagine you are standing on the beach at sunset. Do you see it sinking into the sea?" Hugo nodded but calmly replied, "The sun does not really set in the sea. It only represents what we see on the horizon." Sister Maria felt lost for words. Hugo had just answered her question in a way that could not be denied. The congregation began to feel that this little boy was not only brave, but also had more knowledge than they had imagined. Sister Maria tried to find another opening, but her voice began to fade. "But what about Muhammad? Wasn't he just a prophet?" she asked. Hugo replied calmly, "Muhammad was a prophet, and in Islam, he is revered as a messenger of God." Sister Maria lowered her head, tears beginning to well up in her eyes. The congregation no longer laughed. They no longer mocked Hugo. They looked at the little boy with admiration. For the first time in her life, Sister Maria felt defeated, not only in debate, but also in faith. Tears began to fall, and in a trembling voice she asked, "What should I do?" Hugo looked at her gently and said, "Seek the truth with an honest heart. If Islam is true, Allah will guide you." That day in an old church in Madrid, a nun wept for guidance. Sister Maria sat on an old wooden bench, panting as if she had just been through a terrible storm. The congregation remained silent, some looking anxious, others fixated on the brave little figure who had just changed everything. The next day, Sister Maria felt something different. She put on her nun's habit, but for the first time, her life felt different. She decided to go to the public library in the city of Madrid. She began to read a lot about Islam, about the history of the Prophet Muhammad, about the miracles of the Quran. He read how Islam honors Jesus as a prophet and how the Quran explains the oneness of God so logically and beautifully. That day, Hugo was sitting in the park reading a book when he noticed Sister Maria. Hugo smiled gently. "Sister, how can I help you?" he asked in a friendly tone. Sister Maria took a deep breath, then said in a voice full of honesty, "I want to thank you, Hugo." Hugo raised his eyebrows. "Thank you for what?" "Thank you for opening my mind. I have spent my life hating something I don't even understand. I want to know more about Islam." That day, in a small mosque in Madrid, a nun who was once full of hatred now found the light of guidance. Her new journey began. Guidance can come from anywhere, even from a small child. Never underestimate the truth, because the light of truth will always find its way. That day, in a small mosque in Madrid, Sister Maria felt a peace she had never experienced before. She sat quietly on the floor of the mosque, surrounded by a few ordinary-looking worshippers. However, for Sister Maria, this atmosphere felt extraordinary. Every sentence read by the imam touched her heart, like an awakening from a long sleep. Hugo sat beside her, occasionally explaining the verses the imam was reading, with great enthusiasm and knowledge. For Sister Maria, every word that came out of Hugo's lips seemed so natural and full of conviction. She felt that this little boy understood many things that she had never questioned before. "Sister," Hugo said softly, "God does not want us to hate, but to understand each other. Sometimes we have to let go of our pride and ego to see the real truth." Sister Maria lowered her head, reflecting for a moment. She knew that every word spoken by Hugo contained a deep meaning. She felt that she had been trapped in narrow beliefs for so long, without ever really opening her heart to a broader truth. When the imam finished reciting the prayer, the atmosphere of the mosque returned to calm. Sister Maria felt a deep sense of calm, like a wave slowly calming after a storm. She did not feel strange in this place. Instead, she felt like she had found her new home. "Should I embrace Islam now?" Sister Maria asked, her voice trembling. "Is this the right path?" Hugo looked at her gently, a small smile etched on his face. "Guidance comes at the right time, sister. No one can force or determine when the time is. The most important thing is a sincere intention to seek the truth." Sister Maria's eyes began to fill with tears. She remembered her long journey of life, how she had searched for peace and tranquility, but had never found it in the faith she had followed. But now she felt a peace she had never felt before, something that came from outside herself, much greater and deeper than anything she had ever imagined. Day after day passed. Sister Maria continued to delve deeper into Islam. He read the Quran, attended lectures by Muslim scholars, and began to understand the essence of Islam's teachings of compassion, justice, and sincerity. He also became closer to Hugo, who never stopped explaining and helping to open his eyes to a broader perspective. A few months later, on a bright morning, Sister Maria stood before an imam, her heart set on a firm belief. "I want to embrace Islam," she said with conviction. "I want to find true peace." The imam smiled, nodding proudly. "Welcome to the path of light, Sister Maria. God is always waiting for those who seek him with a sincere heart." With those words, Sister Maria recited the 2 sentences of the Shahada with great emotion. It felt like a new chapter in her life, a true spiritual journey. Guidance had led her to a brighter path. Sister Maria's life changed drastically. She left the convent and began to contribute to the Muslim community in Madrid. She learned about a simpler life, full of compassion for others, and taught Islamic values that changed her. Hugo remained by her side, a true friend who had helped her find the right path. Years passed and Sister Maria became a teacher at the mosque, sharing the knowledge she had gained about Islam with those who wanted to understand. She told of how she used to be full of hatred, but now she found peace and happiness in Islam. Her new life was not the end of the road, but the beginning of a longer and more meaningful journey. One afternoon, as she sat in the garden with Hugo, they talked about life and how everything happens for a beautiful reason. Hugo smiled, seeing how Sister Maria had changed, becoming a calmer and wiser person. "Sister," Hugo said, "this is what I mean by seeking the truth. It's not always easy, but when we find the right path, we will feel at peace." Sister Maria smiled, looking up at the sky that was starting to turn golden. "Yes, Hugo. Thank you for opening my eyes. I believe Allah has shown me the right path." The two of them sat in silence, enjoying the peace that was around them. There was no more hatred, no more doubt. There was only the light that came from a sincere and grateful heart. Days passed, and Sister Maria gradually adjusted to her new life. She continued to learn about Islam, and together with Hugo, she began to teach children in the mosque about the good values contained in the Quran. Although many people were initially skeptical, they slowly began to see a big change in Sister Maria. In the midst of her busy teaching, Sister Maria often reflected on the spiritual journey that had taken her from darkness to light. She never expected that this journey would start with just a simple argument between a nun and a small child. However, that is the power of guidance. Sometimes it comes from unexpected places. One day while Sister Maria was chatting with some worshippers in the mosque, an old man approached her. The man looked anxious, his eyes full of doubt. "Sister Maria, I heard about your journey. I would like to ask you something," the man said in a low voice. "Of course, sir. What do you want to ask?" Sister Maria replied gently, recognizing the man's anxiety. "I wonder, what makes you believe that Islam is the right path?" the man asked, looking serious. Sister Maria smiled, remembering the days when she felt adrift in her confusion. "I felt that Islam gave such a logical and comprehensive explanation of life, of God, and of how we should live. I used to live in confusion, thinking that life was just about inherited beliefs without ever thinking about their meaning. But after I studied Islam, I began to see the world with different eyes. Islam teaches us to seek the truth, to love others, and to live with a greater purpose than just following tradition." The man paused, listening intently. He seemed to think for a moment before saying, "I want to learn more, Sister Maria. Maybe I also need to find a clearer path in my life." Sister Maria felt grateful. Although she was still in the learning stage, she felt that she could already help others find their way. At the mosque, she not only taught children, but also became a student who continued to learn and share knowledge. A few months later, Sister Maria had the opportunity to visit several Muslim communities outside Madrid to introduce the teachings of Islam and share her personal experiences. She spoke in various mosques, meeting many people who had different spiritual journeys, but who were all searching for the truth. Everywhere she visited, Sister Maria felt stronger in her faith. The more she shared her story, the more people felt inspired by her story. A nun who once hated something she considered foreign, but eventually found peace in Islam. One starry night, while Sister Maria was praying in the mosque, Hugo approached her. His face was serious, but there was a small smile. "Sister, I want to thank you," Hugo said respectfully. "Thank you for what, Hugo?" Sister Maria asked, a little confused. "Thank you for not only finding the truth for yourself, but also sharing it with others. You opened the eyes of many people, including me," Hugo replied sincerely. Sister Maria felt a warmth in her heart. She knew that her spiritual journey was not over. In fact, on this journey, she increasingly realized that guidance was not only for herself, but also for others who were searching for the truth. The days passed in peace and happiness. Sister Maria often remembers the difficult times she went through, when she stood before the congregation as a nun full of confidence and arrogance. But now she feels much wiser and more humble. She knows that life is a journey full of lessons, and sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected places. In her new journey, Sister Maria continues to serve the community, teaching about the importance of seeking the truth with an honest and open heart. She prays every night, asking God to continue to provide guidance and direction for her and the people around her. Over the years, Sister Maria's life story has become a legend among many, a story of how guidance can come from anywhere, even from a small child who dares to challenge a long-held belief. A story of the courage to seek the truth, even though the path is full of obstacles and doubts. And one quiet night in the mosque where Sister Maria teaches, she sits among her congregation, feeling at peace. Now she not only finds the light within herself, but she also sees that light radiating to others. That's what makes him feel truly alive, being part of a never-ending journey. One day, as Sister Maria was sitting in a park near the mosque, a young woman approached her. Her face looked confused, her eyes filled with unanswered questions. The woman introduced herself as Anna, a Christian struggling with her faith. "Sister Maria," Anna said in a soft voice, "I have heard a lot about you. You used to be a nun, but now you have chosen Islam. I want to know more. I feel like something is missing in my life, and I want to find the right path. But I am afraid." Sister Maria smiled gently and nodded, recognizing her confusion. "Anna, the journey to find the truth is not easy, but believe me, when we seek with a sincere heart, God will guide us to the right path." Anna sat down next to Sister Maria, and they began to talk more. Anna told her about her past life filled with doubt and confusion. She grew up in a very religious family, but she felt like she had never found true peace. Every time she prayed, she felt as if there was an unreachable distance between herself and God. "Sometimes I feel like there's something bigger than me waiting to be found," Anna said, her eyes filling with tears. "But I don't know where to look." Sister Maria listened intently. She knew exactly what Anna was feeling because she had been there herself, searching for something deeper, more meaningful, but never finding it in her faith. "Anna, in this life, we often feel separated from God, but if we learn to open our hearts and seek sincerely, we will find Him in unexpected places," Sister Maria said softly. "God is near, closer than we think. And sometimes He shows us the way through the people we meet, like when I met Hugo, who changed my life." Anna looked at Sister Maria intently. "What made you believe that Islam was the right path, sister? What made you overcome your doubts and accept a religion so different from anything you had known before?" Sister Maria paused for a moment, contemplating. She recalled the difficult times when she first studied Islam, how she began to open her heart to accept teachings that she had previously considered foreign, even contradictory to everything she believed in. "Islam teaches us to seek the truth with an open heart," Sister Maria said, her eyes sparkling. "I used to feel trapped in a routine of beliefs that were only taught without ever being truly understood. However, after I studied Islam, I felt that I had found the answers I had been looking for, not only from books, but from life experiences that touched my heart." Anna fell silent, trying to digest every word she had just heard. "But sister, I'm afraid that I'm wrong, afraid that I'll choose the wrong path and end up regretting it." "I understand, Anna," Sister Maria replied with understanding. "Every major change in life brings fear and doubt. But what matters most is our intention. Our intention to seek the truth and accept what is right with a sincere heart. There is nothing wrong with questioning and seeking, as long as we continue to seek with an honest heart." They sat in silence for a moment, taking in the conversation. Anna felt something vibrating inside her, like a calling that could not be ignored. She did not know what would happen next, but for the first time she felt a new hope. "Anna," Sister Maria continued, "do not be afraid to seek. In Islam, we are taught to ask and learn, and that is what I did. I kept seeking, kept asking, and finally I found peace. I have never regretted it, because I know that Allah always gives guidance to those who seek sincerely." Anna looked at Sister Maria, her eyes filled with emotion. "Thank you, sister. I will try to be more open and seek with a sincere heart." That day, Anna left feeling lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Sister Maria watched her steady steps, knowing that Anna's journey had just begun, just as hers had. Several months later, Anna returned to see Sister Maria. Her face was brighter, and her eyes filled with a confidence that had not been there before. "Sister, Anna said with a big smile. I am starting to feel more at peace. I have started reading the Quran and trying to understand the teachings of Islam. I don't know if this is the right path for me, but I feel closer to God now. Sister Maria smiled with joy. Anna, that was a very big first step. There is nothing more beautiful than feeling the peace that comes from within. That day they talked for a while longer, learning more about each other's journeys. Sister Maria became more convinced that everyone has their own path to finding the truth, and her job was to help them find that light. Time went by, and Anna became more determined on her journey to Islam. Although she had not yet fully embraced the religion, she felt she had found a path that offered hope and peace. Sister Maria, no longer a nun but a loving Muslim woman, continues to provide guidance to Anna and many others seeking the truth. Sister Maria's life now is filled with a simple yet profound joy, helping others find the peace she felt. She feels she has been on an extraordinary journey, one that began with hatred and arrogance, but eventually led her into the embrace of God's greater love. And in that mosque, amidst people who came from all walks of life, Sister Maria knew that guidance is a gift that is not limited to anyone. Anyone who seeks it with a sincere heart will surely find it. Days passed and Sister Maria's journey deepened. Every day she learned more about Islam, understood more about its teachings, and felt how a once hard heart could become soft again. In every discussion with her new friends, she found wisdom that not only gave her answers, but also aroused a deep sense of gratitude within her. One bright morning, while Sister Maria was praying in the mosque, Hugo approached. Now Hugo was no longer just the little boy who had once challenged her with difficult questions, but had grown into a young man full of enthusiasm and insight. Sister Maria, Hugo said with a smile, I would like to talk to you about a project. There are many young people who are interested in learning more about Islam, but they feel confused and don't know where to start. Sister Maria nodded enthusiastically. That's a great idea, Hugo. I'm sure many people want to learn more, but they don't know how to begin. Yes, Hugo replied. They may feel afraid or doubtful, especially when they see the big differences between their beliefs in Islam. But I am sure that if they are given the opportunity to learn in a safe and loving environment, they will find the peace they are looking for. Sister Maria thought for a moment, thinking about all the experiences she had had. Hugo, I agree. We could start by having a discussion session, not just about Islam, but also about how we can live in peace despite our different beliefs. It's not about winning the debate, but about understanding and respecting each other. Hugo smiled broadly. That's what I mean, sister. Maybe we could invite people from different backgrounds to talk together, share their experiences, and learn from each other. A few weeks later, they began planning their first event, an interfaith discussion aimed at opening up dialogue between Muslims and non-Muslims. Sister Maria and Hugo worked together to invite people from different religions to talk about how they were seeking peace in their lives. They wanted to show that differences are not a reason for conflict, but can be an opportunity to learn from each other and enrich each other. The first day of the event arrived, and the atmosphere in the mosque was full of hope. Sister Maria stood at the front, looking around with a very different feeling than when she first stepped into the place. That day, she no longer felt isolated or confused. She felt at home, among people who respected each other and learned together. Addressing the participants, Hugo began the event with a simple yet profound statement. Today, we are all gathered here, not to show who is more right, but to learn how to live together in peace. No one has the absolute truth, but we can all learn to respect and listen to each other. Sister Maria continued, When I first came to this place, I came with many prejudices and doubts. But now I know that my journey is not only about finding the true religion, but also about finding true peace in my heart. And that peace can only be found through understanding and compassion for others. A discussion began, and people from various religions spoke about their spiritual journeys, about how they strive to live a life of love, and how they overcome difficulties and challenges in their lives. There were no heated arguments, just sincere and respectful conversations. Over time, the event grew into a larger initiative. They began holding other events at mosques and other places, inviting more people to participate. Sister Maria felt that this was her true purpose, to open people's hearts, to introduce them to the peace found in differences, and to show that truth can be found anywhere, if we seek it with a sincere heart. One day when the discussion was over and everyone was starting to go home, Sister Maria sat for a moment in the mosque, reflecting. She felt that her life's journey had found a deeper meaning. All her doubts and confusion had led her to this point, a point where she could share her peace with others. Hugo approached her after the discussion was over, his eyes full of enthusiasm. "Sister, I think this is just the beginning. Many people are beginning to see that living in peace is possible, even when we are different." Sister Maria smiled, realizing that what had started as a simple argument had grown into a larger life mission: to spread the message of peace, understanding, and compassion in a world full of differences. We never know where the light will come from, Hugo, but the important thing is that we keep looking for it and sharing it with others. And so Sister Maria's journey, a nun turned Muslim, continues. She now not only teaches the values of peace, but also lives by them. She knows that guidance is not just for herself, but also for everyone who is ready to receive it with an open heart. In a world full of differences, Sister Maria and Hugo have found their way. And that path, filled with love, understanding, and wisdom, is the path they will continue to follow, not only for themselves but for others who are searching for true peace. A few months after that first discussion, what started out as a simple idea grew into a larger movement. Sister Maria, now better known as Fatima, and Hugo continued to hold meetings that invited people from various religions. Each meeting gave them the opportunity to share stories, experiences, and inspiring spiritual insights with each other. One day, Fatima received an invitation to speak at an international conference on religious tolerance held in Madrid. The invitation came from a friend who had once doubted her conversion, but now came to understand and appreciate her quest. He felt that Fatima was someone who could provide a new perspective on how religion can bring peace to a world full of conflict. At the conference, Fatima spoke in front of many participants who came from all over the world. She told of her life journey filled with doubt, hatred, and finally the discovery of true peace through Islam. She spoke about the importance of understanding differences, respecting others, and opening your heart to receive truth that comes from unexpected sources. "In my journey," Fatima said in a voice full of conviction, "I have learned that truth is not exclusive to one religion or one group. It comes to those who seek it with a sincere and understanding heart. We may differ in our beliefs, but we all share the same goal: to live in peace and respect for one another." Fatima saw many faces awestruck as she listened to her words. Some cried, some paused, and still others nodded in understanding. For them, Fatima's words were not just a story, but a message that opened their eyes to the importance of mutual respect and building bridges between religions. After the talk ended, a woman approached. Her face looked anxious, and her eyes filled with unanswered questions. She introduced herself as Maria, a Catholic who felt confused about the direction of her life. "Sister, I'm sorry, Fatima. I don't know where to begin," Maria said in a trembling voice. "I have been searching for peace in my religion for a long time, but I have always felt like something was missing. After hearing your story, I feel like I am missing something." Fatima smiled softly. "Maria, the journey to find peace is very personal. Sometimes we feel trapped in our beliefs because of tradition or because we are taught to believe without ever really seeking. But what is important is that we dare to open our hearts, ask questions, and learn." Maria lowered her head, feeling a deep dilemma. "I don't know if I can accept teachings that are different from the ones I believe. I'm afraid that I'm wrong, afraid that I'm lost." Fatima understood Maria's feelings. Fear is natural. We've all felt fear when we're at a crossroads. But remember, Maria, we can't find the truth if we don't dare to seek. And seeking doesn't mean having to abandon everything we believe, but opening ourselves to a deeper understanding. Maria fell silent, contemplating. "I will try," she said softly. "I will try to search with a more open heart." Fatima nodded, happy to have given Maria a little understanding. "There is nothing to worry about, Maria. The most important thing is our intention to search with a sincere heart. There is no right path without trials and doubts. But if we keep walking, we will find the path." After the conference was over, Fatima returned to her daily life. She continued to meet with people who wanted to know more about Islam and share life experiences filled with learning and acceptance. Each meeting became more than just a discussion about religion. It became a space to share affection, build friendships, and find peace and togetherness. Hugo, who was now older, continued to accompany her every step of the way. Together, they built a wider network to spread the message of peace, mutual respect, and appreciation of differences. They knew that this world needed more bridges and fewer walls that divided. One afternoon, after a successful meeting in a city park, Fatima sat on the same park bench where she had first spoken to Anna. The cool afternoon breeze touched her face, and she recalled the long journey she had been on. From her confusion, to her old argument with Sister Maria, to the spiritual journey that changed her life. Hugo sat beside her, aware of the silence around them. "Fatima," he said quietly, "you know, I often think about what we do. Many people feel that they have no voice, that their lives have no meaning. But we give them the opportunity to find peace, to find meaning in their lives. I am proud to be a part of this." Fatima smiled and looked up at the sky that was starting to turn orange. "Hugo, this journey is not just about me or you. It is about all those who dare to seek, about those who are not afraid to ask, and those who believe that peace is possible." They sat in silence, at peace with themselves and with a world full of potential goodness. They know that every step they take, no matter how small, is part of a larger journey to bring more light into a world often trapped in the darkness of fear and hatred. And so Fatima and Hugo's journey continues, a journey filled with compassion, understanding, and hope for a better future. They know that there is no end to this journey because every step they take brings them closer to their goal. A world where peace, respect, and compassion are the foundation of all human relationships. Each event they held became more successful, with more and more people coming and joining. People from different religions, social backgrounds, and cultures came together to discuss topics that are often considered taboo: religious differences, social conflict, tolerance, and how to build a better future. Fatima and Hugo felt that they were doing something more than just spreading knowledge. They were building a more humane community, a place where everyone could feel valued. One day after a large event attended by more than 100 people, Hugo approached Fatima with a different expression. His face was serious, but there was a calmness in his eyes. "Sister," he said softly, "I want to thank you for everything, for giving me the opportunity to fight with you in this mission. I feel that my life has a greater purpose now, not only for myself, but for others as well." Fatima looked at Hugo, her eyes full of pride. "Hugo, our journey is not over. We have only just begun. We still have a lot of work to do, a lot of people to help, and a lot of hearts to touch." "I know," Hugo replied, "but I believe that if we continue to work together, we can make this world a little bit better. If not us, who will?" Fatima smiled, looking up at the darkening sky. "That's right, Hugo. We can make a difference, even if it's just a little bit. Every person we help, every heart we touch, is a step closer to a more loving world." That night, Fatima and Hugo sat together, contemplating in quiet silence. They knew that their journey was long, challenges would continue to come, and obstacles would arise along the way. But they also knew that as long as they stayed true to their goal, to bring peace, understanding, and compassion, they would always be on the right path. They both believed that big changes start with small steps taken with a sincere heart. And even though the world is full of uncertainty and conflict, they know that every person they help to see the world with more compassionate eyes will help create a better world. With that conviction, Fatima and Hugo continue their journey, seeking to reach more hearts, spread more light, and build more bridges in a world full of divides. Days passed, and Heartbridge became more and more well-known. Fatima and Hugo felt that, although they had inspired many people, their journey was far from over. Every step they took, every meeting they held, reminded them that the world needed more love and understanding. Yet despite their apparent success, they still faced challenges. Not everyone welcomed the change with open arms. Some felt threatened, others were still trapped in hatred and fear of those who were different. It was not uncommon for them to find themselves in heated arguments or to face ridicule and rejection. But they persisted. They knew that every difference, every disagreement was part of a larger learning process. One evening, as they sat in the garden where Hugo had first asked the question that changed everything, Hugo asked, "Sister, do you ever get tired of all this? All the fighting, the arguing, and the criticism? Sometimes I feel like we're never enough." Fatima smiled, realizing that this was a reasonable question for someone who had fought as hard as Hugo. "Of course, Hugo, I feel tired too. Not every day is easy, and sometimes I feel like giving up. But when I see the faces of the people we help, when they start to understand each other, when they find peace within themselves, I know that all this work is worth it." Hugo pondered and then said, "I guess we'll never know how big an impact we've made. But if we can touch just one heart, that's enough, right?" Fatima nodded, her eyes full of enthusiasm. "That's right, Hugo. Every big change starts with a small step. We don't know what the future holds, but we know that every person we help to see the world in a more loving way will make a big difference. And that's enough for me." That night, Fatima and Hugo sat together, looking at the starry night sky. They knew that despite their journey, they would never stop fighting for peace and unity. Several years later, after many successful events, discussions, and meetings, the Bridge of the Heart has become a symbol of peace and interfaith understanding in the city of Madrid. Fatima and Hugo, who have now become more than just friends but true companions, have witnessed the incredible growth of their movement. They have seen more people who once felt isolated begin to speak more openly and wisely. In a modest mosque, Fatima sits in front of a group of people who have just joined the Bridge of the Heart program. They all come from different backgrounds. Some are Catholic, some are Protestant, some are agnostic. They have gathered with one goal: to understand each other, to respect each other, and to create a better world. Fatima smiles as she watches the participants talk to each other, sharing their views on religion and life. "This is our goal," she says to herself, "to create a space where differences are no longer an obstacle, but a force that unites us all." That day, she felt more certain than ever that despite the challenges in this world, kindness, understanding, and compassion can penetrate any wall. Because in the end, what matters most is not how much we talk or argue, but how sincere our hearts are in doing good, how strong our intention is to see the good in everyone, regardless of what they believe. Closing. Fatima and Hugo's journey teaches us that change begins with the courage to ask questions, to learn, and to embrace differences. In a world often torn apart by hatred and fear, they show that peace can be built through genuine, loving dialogue. Every small step they take, every heart they touch, shows that the world can be a better place if we are willing to try, not just for ourselves, but for others. Ultimately, we all have a role to play in creating peace, from within ourselves to the wider world. As Fatima and Hugo teach us, nothing is too small or insignificant in the fight for good. We just need to be brave enough to step forward, open our hearts, and trust that the light of truth will always overcome the darkness.